Joining us to discuss the process of getting a vaccination that works is healthcare attorney Harry Nelson. He's the founder and managing partner of Nelson Hardiman, the largest specialty healthcare law firm in Los Angeles. Welcome back, Harry. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. One of the front runners in these potential vaccines being produced by Moderna, the nation's chief infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, called this one promising. Why?
Yeah, so Moderna, which is the leading front runner coming out of the United States, published a study last week in the New England Journal of Medicine that showed that it generated in a strong immunogenic response, a robust immune response, which is what you want from a virus. So it seems to be the leader in the United States, as you mentioned in your comments. It's competing against one coming out of Oxford that is backed by AstraZeneca, and then there's some leading vaccines coming out of China as well.
What actually happens during the 3 phases of FDA testing to get a vaccine approved and then get it on the market?
So it's a great question. Normally, this takes place over a couple of years. You have a phase 1 trial. That's where you really talk about safety. And you have a small group of people have low doses to make sure the virus doesn't have side effects that are going to really hurt anybody. Then you have a bigger group, typically over 100 people or so, who are testing efficacy, seeing is it effective with different doses and treatments. And then phase 3 is really where the rubber meets the road. That's where we have a large-scale test. Normally, that would be thousands of patients and would happen over a couple of years. But in this case, we are fast-tracking things, and it's probably going to be hundreds of patients. Again, focusing on effectiveness, but also the question of how it compares with other alternatives that are out there.
You can understand the FDA fast-tracking vaccines, given what we're living through right now, but is that something that concerns you?
So it's a really tough question. You know, on the one hand, the world economy is shut down, and a vaccine would make the difference. So it's an urgent problem. On the other hand, there is a high risk when you put out a vaccine quickly without testing it on a big scale, thousands of people, that it may have bad side effects. And we have examples in the past of other vaccines, like rotavirus is a famous one, where the initial vaccine had terrible side effects. And it could scare people away from the vaccine. So I'm still optimistic, but I think we should just be cautious and go slowly as we start testing and rolling these out. And it's going to happen in the next couple months.
So when a vaccine is finally approved, what's the likelihood that school districts would require all their students and staff to be vaccinated? And is there a legal precedent for mandatory vaccinations?
Sure. So we have legal precedents. It's a great question. We have measles, mumps, rubella. We order people to take those, and we have a history of all kinds of critical public health crises that led to mandatory vaccines. So the really interesting question is, will a COVID-19 vaccine ultimately be effective, be required, and when will it be imposed? I suspect that eventually we're going to see schools requiring it, but I think it's going to be a little while, just to make sure that we don't have that side effect problem.
So it's been reported that there is an upper arm injection of plasma, using plasma from survivors of COVID. Dr. Fauci has called it a very attractive concept. Is it an alternative to a vaccine, and why isn't more being done on that front?
So that's a great question. So it's very interesting. We've been seeing in hospitals around the country and around the world using what people are calling convalescent plasma. That's essentially when you take plasma out of the blood of people who already had COVID-19 and produce the antibodies, and by injecting that plasma, you give people antibodies. So it's different from a vaccine, where normally a vaccine, we put a modified version of the virus itself in, and we let the person generate an immune response in their own antibodies. So the difference, it's interesting, the United States has not wanted to fund it, and frankly, around the world, we haven't seen a strong amount of funding, even though this is a much faster and more immediate way to get help. I think the answer is that it's a much more expensive process. First of all, you have to actually have real blood product, which is much more expensive. There's no profits in it. You want to be cynical for the drug companies. But I think what we've seen is that governments around the world have made a huge bet, billions and billions of dollars on vaccines, and they're not interested in pursuing the second lane, even though it may be a faster and more immediate opportunity.
Wow. All right, Harry, thank you so much. Appreciate the information this morning. Harry Nelson is the author of 2 best-selling healthcare books and the founder and co-managing partner at Nelson Hardiman, a specialty law firm for healthcare providers. For more information, you can check out his website.